Shalisha, are we good? Okay. The first budget workshop, fiscal year 2016-17. It's Wednesday, August 17th, 2016. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Coviello.
Present.
Vice Mayor Ross.
Here.
Commissioner Jonas. Commissioner Watts. And Commissioner Anderson.
Here. Okay, welcome everyone. If everyone would stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to again welcome everyone to this evening's workshop. We're going to start out with public comments related to the agenda items, which is the budget. So anyone wishing to come up and state your name and address for the record? Yep.
Okay. Hello. David Raymond, 11520 Northeast 9th Avenue. First of all, I appreciate all the good work that went into preparing the budget. And my question, and I probably emailed both Maria and the mayor about this, and I've also discussed it with Roxy at this point. The only concern I have is related to the issue with road water, drainage, flooding, whatever you want to call it. I know flooding gets to be a charged word around here sometimes, but on our street, on 9th, we definitely do have a small flooding problem with the drains there. Many of you have been out to visit, including Maria in the July heat, and John, which I appreciate. So I guess my question is, I know that there's another part of the budget that is the CIT budget will be included. Those are state revenues or something along those lines, or county revenues that are included in a different budget. So I guess process-wise, I was just trying to understand if the flood study that was done will be presented in September, as I understand it, potentially.
That's what we were told.
Yep, so I'm probably going to miss that and be working out of town at that point, but regardless of that, I guess I'm trying to figure out if that point, if some of the recommendations in that budget come back and say, and I realize you're not looking at redoing all the roads and using any general funds or anything for anything like that, but if there are some areas that are bad, and there are a few, at least 2 or 3 that I'm aware of, how would that be addressed at a later date if the budget's already set before you hear what they have to say about the flooding? So that's my concern related to the budget. The rest of the budget looks fine, and congratulations on the job.
Okay. All right. Thank you, David.
Harvey Bill, 450 Northeast 121st Street. I guess I've got one comment, and that is, are we making allowances in our new budget for the cost of the new driveway ordinances, how it's going to affect the village? And I'm not sure what our driveways are as far as the village hall goes, but I know as far as the rec center, almost none of the parking spaces meet the code. And will we in fact plan for that in the future? And I guess if we're expecting residents to meet the new driveway ordinance, we should also. My other question was, have we taken into consideration the church as far as what we're requiring them to do for parking? I believe our ordinance originally was for maintenance and to make sure things looked nice and pretty and things were taken care of. They park on grass. It always looks good. So if they can park on grass and it looks good, I think it's something we should actually give some thought to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Harvey.
Chuck Ross, 1166 Griffin Boulevard. First of all, Maria, I noticed that you put in the detail of the transfers in as administrative fees, explaining what they are. That's good. You did it.
That's a compliment.
Good. I just have one comment. Every year it seems that we have, and actually I'm sorry, I wish I hadn't discussed this with the chief first, so I apologize, but I want to bring this up. Every year we have overtime because for one reason or another we seem to have something going on. And it amounts to, it seems, about the cost of another police officer. So I was thinking that what we might want to discuss is maybe it makes more sense just to go ahead and fill a slot for one more police officer, and instead of paying that much overtime every year. And it's just food for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. Actually, Harvey brought up a point I was going to bring up, and that's the rec center. I just drove around it today to take another look, 'cause sometimes you just get used to seeing it look a certain way. The entire perimeter really needs to be redone. It's actually a code violation now. And I was looking in the budget, trying to figure out if you had made any provisions for that, and I don't see it. Maybe it's someplace else. The other two, to me, code violations in the village are the garbage cans that are on display at the rec center and at the village hall. I was told by the past manager that she was arranging to get some kind of screening, fencing. I spoke with the mayor, Gary and I both did. I was told a long time ago this was in the works, but again, I don't see this in the budget. It's something that should be addressed. If we want residents to do this, we should be doing it. I don't know if I know you're only going to be handling the first part of the budget. I don't know if you want comments on recreation at the next meeting.
Recreation is not, yeah,
So-
you're welcome, but I would prefer the next meeting.
Okay,
That's
so
okay?
those are the two things I'd like to see in the
Okay.
budget. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Linda Dillon, 712 115th Street. I just have a question, and this is something very, very minor, and the only reason it popped up is because I didn't even know what this was, and I went to look it up to find out. We have something called a burn grant that apparently goes to the police department, and I see it's on the budget twice, and I didn't know if it was supposed to be, or if that's an error. It comes under the section right after landlord permits, and then it comes up again after we talk about leases of vehicles.
It's a revenue coming in, and it's expenditure. So that's why you see the 12.
It's a matching
Okay.
grant. All right, anyone else? No? Okay. All right, we'll close the public comment period. And we'll begin the discussion for the budget. Madam Manager, did you want to do a general overview first before we?
Yeah, if I may. So just to start off, the property appraiser on July 1st came in and estimated our value at $176,894,000, which was an increase over last year of 10.5%. Okay? So at the July 20th meeting, the commission set the tentative millage rate at 9.70. That resulted in 1.6 million ad valorem taxes. That's 59% of our revenues. Just as something that, as we go along, we'll talk about that. Each .10 mil will represent approximately 16,800. So I think after, we go through this week and next week, that's something that you'll want to consider. And so everybody knows that.
What was the figure? 16?
16,800.
Okay.
So if you go from 9.7 and you decrease to 9.6, or that's the amount of money that you're looking at. But of course, you'll do that after you go through both workshops. Okay? By setting the millage at 9.7, plus adding in all the other revenues, we currently have a contingency amount of $83,302. That represents taking the difference between your revenues and the projected expenditures. So right now you have about this $80,000 in your pocket to either spend a little more in other places, or at the end of going through both workshops, you may decrease that amount and then further decrease your millage rate. So that is something that you have right now to work with as we go through this.
And roughly what percentage of the total budget is that?
I don't have that percentage.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me. Okay, so just to give you a general overview of your revenues, last year our revenues were 2.5 million. This year we're projecting 2.7 million. That's an increase of 6.48%. Okay, and then as far as your expenditures go, those are the each department. And again, this is just the general fund. Again, last year 2.58. This year, we're projecting 2.7 million, but again, that includes that 80,000 contingency. So department by department, as we go along, I'll talk about how that department has either increased or decreased. And with that, we can go right into the revenues, talk about that, or however you'd like to continue from here.
Yeah, no, let's start with the general fund revenues, and I guess we can just go down the line to the extent we have questions. Who would like to start? Commissioner Jonas? No? Commissioner Anderson, you want to start at that end?
Well, I met with Maria today, and on the revenues, and she answered my questions.
Okay.
And there was just one item, but it's, and Maria was going to be finding out.
Yes, I did not state that Claude Charles is absent today. He was ill yesterday. He came in today, but I did send him home because he was really not feeling well.
Okay.
So any questions that you have, I may have to refer back to him, so then I'll bring it back at next Wednesday's meeting. I'm sorry?
That's on the traffic fines.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson, so you have your questions answered on revenue?
Yes, except for the one that there's just one item, and we have to wait to the...
Okay, do you want to bring that to everyone's attention so that we're...
Okay, well, the question what I had is the one that says traffic fines, and that's 351,5000.
Okay.
And we're projecting a tremendous decrease on it, and I was just wondering why we have such a decrease.
Yeah, that was one of my comments too. Okay, good.
So like I explained to Commissioner Anderson, I have to see why we budgeted $7,500 last year, why that was so high, because we've only received in, I'm projecting only $2,500 this year. So by going back to the previous budgets, I can see what the trend is and see why the decrease and if it's been consistently going down. So I'll be able to get that, work with the chief, and then bring it back to you next week.
And just so I understand, the money that we get for traffic fines is not necessarily directly correlated to the amount of tickets that we give.
There could be. There's a portion of it is, but then there's also, if it has to do with that, we write the ticket, the person pays for it, the county takes out their chunk, and then some other items get out. So I have to see, has the formula changed? Has the percentage changed? And can I see a trend in the quantity?
Because last budget cycle, it was 7,100 is what we got.
Okay. So we'll look at that as well.
Right.
Okay. Commissioner Watts?
I think what Maria and I spoke this afternoon about these things too, and I think one thing she suggested was that, remember in the past years, sorry. Okay, in the past years, we did get a good deal of income from the click it and ticket things, so.
So I got to see what impact that had on it, and, I didn't want to just give an answer
right,
without
no.
looking, throughout maybe 3 years back.
Mm-hmm. And then just one thing that, I know we've talked about this in the past, but again, the interest earnings, and I know in most accounts, the interest one gets from a savings account is virtually nothing, but I wondered again, maybe we could see about making more money because we've got a negative 50% on interest earnings. But there were questions, but Maria answered them all.
Okay, great. I just had a couple of questions. Under, let's see, 322,800 plan review, the bottom of page 1. What is that for? It just seems that we budgeted $40,000 and then we're projected only 6,000 revenue.
Okay, let me see. Okay.
And we're projected 6,000 and now we're budgeting 28,000.
If you recall, I think it maybe was just...
Income.
Yeah, if you recall, I don't know if it was the July meeting and the August meeting, we put through a resolution where we updated our fee schedule, and we put in the plan review $95 back in there. Earlier in the year, what had happened is we took that $95 out because it was deemed as we were duplicating a fee on the building permit. Because sometimes we would call it a plan review, sometimes we would call it an inspection. So the building inspection was already covered in the building permit amount. Right. So then when we had this other $95, it was, okay, it's a duplicate amount, let's take it out of our fee schedule. But what we realized in these past few months is our building inspectors, cap government, they were billing us for reviewing the plans, reviewing the permits, whether it was a permit, whether it was plan review.
And we weren't recouping that
And we
money.
weren't recouping it.
Who decided to,
Earlier in the
Cancel.
year, it was deemed as a duplicate because of the way, I think just the way it was being, inspection review, I think just the way we were saying it, and it was taken out incorrectly. And that's why I put it back in, it was either in July or August when I updated that. So now, it is part now of the building permit, so when a person pays for their building permit, that is in there, so we are now recouping it. So that's why. So if you go to the very next page, I'm projecting 300 permits per year at $95, and that's why that amount is in there.
okay. The next question is, the burn grant, which someone alluded to, is for police, correct?
Correct.
And this is really not on a proposed budget question, but really a current budget. We had an original budget of 2,600, and we have activity through June 30th is $763.
That's something I also asked Corporal Walschlager. I've asked him to give me what we've bought against it. I'm thinking that maybe it was posted to somewhere else when it should be in here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if there's money available, then we should be
Right. I don't think so. I think they've spent it all. So I just have to find out where that posting was done.
Okay. Really the same question with the 6th Avenue median maintenance. Original budget 1,400, and we've had $700 activity.
That comes in quarterly. That revenue comes in quarterly. So we invoice the state, and then they send it back. So I think we,
I'm sorry, that's on third.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Okay, so we anticipate spending the full amount of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
and again, this is a revenue coming in because they reimburse us for the work that we do on 6th Avenue.
The next line is the forestry grant.
Mm-hmm.
Did we not get that this past budget year?
That's
or-
correct.
We didn't.
No, we did not.
We didn't apply. Okay.
But we
have
did
an
this year?
application in for the current, for the
For the next year, we did get it, it's been approved, and we get 4,000.
Okay, perfect. All right. The rec center lighting project, $2,000. That's perfect. Just a couple more questions. I don't quite understand. The sanitation budget, we have administrative fees that are 3 different fees, but why are there no figures from,
Last year,
yeah,
because it was all under the very last line item, transfers in.
that's what that was.
That's where they put it.
Okay.
But, Mayor, I'm glad you pointed that out. I need to, I should have reported it before you all started. There's an error here. If you go to the administrative fees road fund of $23,603,
What line?
that is 349-1010,
Okay.
okay? That 23,603 is duplicated. That goes into the road fund. So it's duplicated in here, so I need to take that 23,603 out.
Okay.
That's called
Traffic,
double dipping. No, just kidding.
okay, traffic fines we already touched on.
Correct.
The other issue that I thought was we were budgeting a little bit lower is code compliance,
Right.
particularly because, this year, I think, in my view anyway, I want to focus on
Right.
code compliance, and not that necessarily equates to
Revenue.
money received, but I think it goes hand in hand, that if
Yeah.
we're going to ramp up code compliance, then I think it's-
I went back to my notes of last year's budget, and during that time, I think there was a specific case that was going on that we knew we were going to get a set amount.
Okay.
And that's why it was projected at that 53. Okay, so again, looking at, again, I
you look
can't,
at other years.
yeah.
Okay, all
So
right,
that's
fine.
why I did that, the 25.
And then the transfers in, you explained that that's the sanitation.
Yes, that's where it was put
Okay,
in.
all right, that's what I have on revenue. Commissioner, Vice Mayor Ross?
So I always think that we should be conservative in our projections of revenue, so,
Yep.
I understand putting code at 25. I do have a question on the line item for landlord permit fee, which is 3,293,000. And I'm curious what kind of response we've gotten, because we implemented that a couple of months back, the continuation of the landlord permitting, so...
Unfortunately, I have not gotten any response because a big factor of that is the inspection fee, okay? In order to properly send out those notifications, I got to have the inspection part of it ready to go.
Lined up, yeah.
And that I'm waiting on Cap Government to give me a quote on that. So we've kind of been going forth, giving them numbers of what they can expect, some kind of a schedule that we can expect, so that they can quote me back on that.
Okay, so then I think that projecting $26,000 revenue, even though a lot of it is going to be paid right out for CAP for the inspection, I think that's high.
Well, as you can see underneath, I based it on a number. I said, we have 300 identified properties that...
3,293,000?
3,293,000, correct. Okay? So I know that there are 300 properties that owe a landlord. That's your duplexes, your multi-units, and some single families that I know that rent, okay? I'm projecting the $50 landlord fee, and I'm projecting a 60% collection rate. Everybody else that doesn't pay, it'll go through a lien process, okay? The same thing, 300 identified properties, $95 for the inspection fee. I'm projecting a 60% collection rate, and you get that number of $26,100.
But then we'll pay the inspector for that.
Well, correct. This is a revenue that comes in by the property owner paying us, and then it's paid out on your inspection
So
fees.
in the buildings department, there's that expense correlating
Correct.
on the other side?
Correct.
Okay. Also on building, I'm a little bit concerned that when I add up all of the permitting fees, it comes to $168,500, and now plus the plan review is another $28,000. So that's $180,000, $196,000, when our entire building department budget is $50,000 less than that.
I will review that.
Okay.
But, it's based on your estimate of number of permits?
Correct.
Right. And is it 300 does it vary per discipline? Or?
Remember, we received, I'm going to use $100 in, we only pay 60% out.
Right.
So it's not a dollar to dollar between revenues and your expenditures. But I still see there could be an imbalance. I'll verify that.
Building department is not supposed to be a profit center. We're supposed to be
Correct.
charging out what it costs to process the permits.
Correct.
Then just a general comment on the budget and having to work with the budget.
Where is...
For the last 10 years, except for one, we have had our audit so that we had the prior year end to compare going forward. And as of today, we don't have our audit. I had a communication with our auditors asking them, when can we expect to get the audit? And their response was that since February, when they sent their initial audit request, there's been sort of a gap of apparently no communication until last week when they got trial balances, but no supporting schedules. And unfortunately, the trial balances that they received, the fund balances don't match the prior year. So until they have a corrected trial balance and all of the supporting schedules, they can't start to plan and schedule their field work. And according to their timetable to complete the audit, from planning to delivering the report is about 8 weeks. So, I mean, I made copies of this because I think it's that important that I need to share with you. It appears that we're not going to have our audit for
completed for at least another 8 weeks if we were ready to go today.
Okay, Madam Manager, are you
Yep.
aware that documents are pending from our end?
If you can just see here, here's the list that we received at the start of this. Well, for me, May 1st, when I started this, very long list of all of the deliverables that the village needs to provide. We have been, since May 1st, providing all these deliverables, okay? One of the biggest factors is the trial balance, okay? If I can just give some history. Last year, when our finance manager started, the audit for the period ending 9/30/14 had been completed. Our finance manager came into this current budget that's being audited towards the end. He has been active in the current budget that we're in, 15-16. So now we get this list and we start working on it to provide those deliverables. There were many items in the trial balance that had not been properly updated from the last time. And it's a matter of finding these things. It's like taking somebody's notes, that the last finance manager, and then trying to figure out where all these things are. It has been extremely time-consuming trying to find these. We've had Cecilia come out twice, our auditor, to help us guide here. She's given us information, clues from the last audit in order for us to find some of these differences, and it's just a long and tedious process. That's all, the only thing that I can provide and explain. I've provided assistance to Claude by giving him the temp help for getting the checks done, for getting the mail done, for processing our accounts payable, so that he can concentrate on this 100%.
I've asked, and I've asked here in front of this commission for help in the finance department because I sense that help is needed. I thought it was by way of that consulting firm that we had, the finance people, Hinojosa, and if that wasn't it, then what is it? Because I want the commission to support getting the appropriate help so that we can get through this audit. I've heard that it's a priority, but that doesn't help me in feeling comfort that we are progressing towards getting to the audit.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I asked Claude, who can come in here and help you? I've been asking him. At one point he says, I wish Erwin could come in and help me figure out where all this stuff is. So if you know of somebody else that can help us come in and look at all these and try to figure it out, more than welcome. Can I
suggest that we contact Erwin and ask him if he would come in and consult to get us through the audit?
I was just going to say, why not at least try?
Well, he didn't leave here with the best of feelings for Biscayne Park.
Well, remember, he left, there was a different manager here at that time, so
And he was,
hopefully,
I'm sorry, he was a complete professional when the decision was already made to terminate the relationship, and he came back and he helped us through the audit. Actually, I learned today that he used to be our CFO as he was at El Portal. And El Portal severed the relationship with him. They just recently hired him back because they were not able to organize themselves in the year that he was gone. So I think that, especially knowing that Claude said, sure, he would draw on that experience and knowledge base, I think we should reach out to Erwin and ask him.
I can certainly do that.
Okay.
Should we set some parameters? How much do you want to dedicate to that, or?
Well, when you're going to reach out to him, and then when's the next meeting?
Our next workshop is next Wednesday.
Yeah. So, do you want to first see whether he's available, and then
Absolutely.
we can discuss it at next Wednesday's workshop?
and whomever...
Yeah, we can't, I guess,
Yeah,
we can't
wait
really
too long.
vote. We could just give some direction. but we
Right.
can't vote.
Well, we do have a special meeting, so you could make a decision then.
Yeah, next week.
Okay, so I think the consensus is to reach out to Erwin.
Well, before
Yes,
we
but-
agree to do that,
Yeah.
Rox, what do you know El Portal did in Irwin's absence? How were they trying to manage their finances?
I spoke very briefly with Mayor Claudia Cabello, and so I don't have all of the details, except that they were not able to get through their audit process either, and so they've hired him back as their CFO.
What I would like, though, is whomever we have, if it's Irwin or whatever, I'd like to make sure we get reports on what they're doing, because the previous company we had in here helping with our finances, come to find out, we weren't getting any reports, any written reports.
Do we know what's, you alluded to a long list, right? Do we know what's pending?
Oh, sure, we know everything, but right now, the concentration seems to be on that trial balance. And to try to figure out what was done, what was not done. Okay,
And that's
I'm
what
sorry.
Claude needs assistance with?
Yes.
Okay.
But Cecilia's email says
And other things as well, yes.
Okay.
there were no supporting schedules, and the trial balance that she received didn't comply with the prior year.
And that's exactly right, so that's why we're trying to figure out the differences. We found out edits that were done and then taken away, and it's just a matter of trying to figure those out.
Okay, her email gives me the impression that we are at the same place that we were at in February when she first came out.
I don't know why she said that, but we've had several
Was that what
meetings.
she said, or? I don't know.
As you may know, we made our initial audit request. Management could better tell you for the causes for delay, but we just received the trial balance and no supporting schedules. That was last week.
Okay. All right, well, I mean, I'm comfortable with reaching out to Irwin, but is it that Claude does not have the expertise to handle this, or is it that he needs the institutional knowledge to kind of...
To me, it's the institutional knowledge,
Okay, all right.
without question.
Okay. All right, any other comments on that?
Generally, not on revenues, but, so we're just covering revenues.
Yeah, just covering revenues right now. Commissioner Jonas?
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay. Then we will move on to commission. Commissioner Anderson, do you want to start, or do you want to...
I'm getting there.
All right.
I really didn't have any real questions. It would be just nice on education and training to actually have a little bit more money in there than the 2,500.
As you know, it's done 500 per commissioner.
Right. That's what I was saying. It'd be nice to have a little bit more than that. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels.
May I?
Go ahead, sure.
I agree. I think that we have been skimping on it for a long time, and we're going to have 3 new commissioners or 3 renewing commissioners coming in, and they should be able to go to the EMO classes or avail themselves of some other seminars that are out there to help them, give them the tools to do a good job.
I don't know, I gave this some thought, and I know we've discussed this in the past about compensation of us up here. And if we're going to really make an effort to cut items from the budget and be conservative, and as small as they may seem, I think each one adds up. And to me, why not start from the commission? So I was thinking more along the direction of cutting all education and training, all related expenses for travel, and we get paid a salary, so use that salary however we want, whether it's for training, seminars. That way, I mean, it's $2,000 per commissioner, the mayor gets $4,000. Use that money as we see fit to attend meetings or to attend seminars, and that would save, what, $4,000 from the budget? It's just if we start taking these mini steps, I think they're going to add up to a significant amount. So that was my thought. I know in the past we discussed cutting commission compensation across the board, which I think we should handle it one way or the other. Either we cut compensation and just do it as on a reimbursement basis, or we cut the training expenses and just keep the compensation.
Well, we had this discussion before, and if you go for reimbursement, it's going to be a nightmare for our finance department, and, to keep track of all these receipts we hand in to that department to go ahead and get reimbursements. So I'm not for that, doing it that way at all. And I think it's important for the training, because especially when you get new commissioners, they need to have something there to avail themselves to go ahead and get some training and education.
No, and I agree with that.
And there's a lot of, if the commissioners sitting up here are doing their job, there's a lot of other things that it's very difficult to go ahead and be tracking, because, you're using your personal vehicles. I know I've been driving just because with this garbage and trash setup, every single day I'm driving I probably put maybe 10, 15 miles a day driving through this village, looking at what Waste Pro has been doing. And so, I don't expect to get reimbursed for that, but that'd be very awkward to go ahead and track all of that and say, I have to also pay for my training out of my what I'm getting as a commissioner. I think you're going to find we're putting a block in the way of future commissioners of what they're going to really try to do.
Okay.
I agree, and I don't want to be offensive, but I'd like to know what's your annual salary?
That's inappropriate. As a mayor?
No, personally.
That's inappropriate. It has nothing to do with
No, the expenses that people have to, in being a commissioner, even giving gifts and doing all the other things. I mean, to just say that all education is going to come out of your own little $2,000 salary. I mean, of course, I went to the Good Government Initiative, and I paid, we used $500 there, and then $500 was actually paid for by, I paid $500. But then to go to the League of Cities meetings, that was my money, that I needed to do, I paid for it myself. And I think that it's just wrong, and the burdening of all of the receipts, it's just a time-consumer thing that makes the job of a village commissioner so burdensome that I don't see how anyone who does his or her own lawn work, who doesn't have a cleaning lady, could have time to do this if you have a responsible job.
Excuse me.
Listen, I respect...
David, just a second. Barbara, when you say you paid for it yourself, you mean you did not get reimbursed?
Oh.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're actually a model of what we're talking about. And I will say that there are municipalities that don't pay their elected officials because they understand that it's something that some of the residents of the municipality do out of their sense of devotion for the municipality. I guess I will, just for purpose of this discussion, reveal to you all that I have never taken a salary from the village for being a commissioner. Whenever I've gone to anything, emo or anything else, I've paid for it myself. I just feel as though it's part of what I can do for the village, and if I wanted to be paid to be a commissioner, $2,000 a year would be a joke. Maybe $2,000 a month would be fair, but not $2,000 a year. So I'm doing this out of devotion, not because it's my way of trying to make money.
Make money, look, I still haven't finished my taxes because I haven't had time from 2 years ago, but I did tally up all of my expenses from Biscayne Park, and actually it exceeded the $2,000. And the thing is that I'm sorry that it's going to be a burden for other people who perhaps don't make that much money. And just the time that it takes, if we're all working like 20 hours a week at least on this.
Hey, look, I respect what you're saying and what Commissioner Anderson is saying, but I just... In a perfect world, yes, we all should be paid well. We work hard and we do a lot for our community, but it's not a perfect world. We have a very tight budget, and if we're going to start making a concerted effort to look at this budget and cut, I think it's only fair to at least consider that.
You could choose to do it electively. I chose not to sign up for the League of Cities because I didn't want to spend the money for Biscayne Park's money.
Okay.
So there are plenty of other small cities that pay their electeds $1 a year to serve.
Golden Beach.
But they also, Bell Harbor, Bay Harbor Islands, there's plenty of them.
Annual income of those.
El Portal, I think, only pays them $1, but they all have like an expense account to reimburse themselves for things like a tablet or other things that they use for seminars and things that they go to. They have an adequate expense account for that. And so they draw, rather than draw salary, they draw reimbursement for those expenses. I like that scheme, and I guess it's a majority of us that's going to decide which way it goes. But I don't want to see cutting away from the opportunity for new commissioners to have to avail themselves of that training and those tools, because you don't take a test to get into this job, but once you get in here, you will suddenly realize that there are a lot of things that you need to gain knowledge about, and it's not going to happen by osmosis, and it costs money to do those things. In fact, I was going to suggest for the there was $3,500 last year that was in the budget for professional fees, and I think that when this new commission is seated after the elections, a strategic planning session is going to be essential for them to be able to succeed with the new manager in reaching the continuing goals or the new goals that they set for the community. And without that strategic plan, it becomes hard for administration to figure out where they're going to find the funding, set the benchmarks, figure out where they're going to, what direction we're going to go from here. We've accomplished a lot in the last couple of years. Some of it was really by luck that we got to where we are. And there was hard work involved, but it all just came together. We need to give the next commission and the next manager those tools to take us to the next level. So rather than cut away, I would put back $3,500 for a strategic planning session.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in a minute, but let's talk about the issue at hand, which is either cut salaries out completely and just leave it for education and training, or cut education and training and leave the salaries and let each commissioner decide how to utilize that money, whether it's training, whether it's League of Cities meetings.
Are you saying you want to eliminate one or the other?
Yes. Because if you have a salary, then you know, okay, I have this amount of money every year that I'm being paid by the city. I'm going to use it for a seminar here. I'm going to use it for League of Cities dinner here, and it's easy to keep track of. You have a set amount, and as you use it, it gets deducted every year. I mean, to me, that's pretty simple.
No, when you have so much work to do, and sometimes you have to pay someone to mow your lawn because you've got so much Biscayne Park work. Or do you want me to not get my hair cut anymore because I only get it cut regularly because I'm a Biscayne Park commissioner? Those things cost money. I think we need a salary. It's fine for rich people to say cut salary, but a little $2,000 when you're actually spending more than $2,000 a year on Biscayne Park. I mean, I think it's wrong, just wrong.
I think if you start cutting either one of those, you're going to find out you're going to have a lot of people up here not involved. That's what happens.
I don't know that people do it for the money. I mean,
no. There's not everybody who gets elected can afford out of their own expenses. I mean, what we're being paid here for $2,000. There's a certain amount of expenses that I can't say that's training. Like I said, where I've been driving around seeing Waste Pro. If I had no salary, I don't know if I would bother doing that, because that's coming out of my own pocket then. And I think we're setting a bad example. There's a lot, and you take a look. Yes, there is a number of cities that pay their commissioners $1 a year, and you're going to find out. Start talking to a lot of those commissioners and ask them, have you been to here, been to there? And you're going to find out, no, they don't. They don't bother.
I disagree with you. I suspect you're wrong about that.
Well, Miami Shores, the annual income of someone in Miami Shores is a lot larger than what we have here. So too Golden Beach. And I think, too, just thinking of Commissioner Anderson, and I missed the last one, I'm planning to go to the next one, but the League of Cities annual meetings, the monthly meetings. He has met people and made connections that enabled him to fix, that get money for the schoolhouse and fixing the area around that school, and all kinds of other things. And I've gotten ideas from people I've met at those meetings. Now, all right, I'm going to ask each one of the commissioners, how often do you go out to dinner? I go out to dinner max 5 times a year with a Groupon, okay? Those dinners, those League of Cities dinners cost what? $50, $60? $45. Okay, are you going to spend $45 for banquet food out of your own pocket just because you want connections? I'm sorry.
Barbara, where did you vacation last month?
It was paid for.
All right, this wasn't meant to deteriorate to this. I was just making a suggestion that if we're going to be serious and start to cut areas, we got to consider everything, and
Yeah, this is not one of the areas I want to cut.
well,
Period.
So, how about this, which is a compromise? Rather than cut, move it all to education, and then you draw it in, move it all to an expense kind of a thing, and then you draw from there. So it'll be, for commissioners, the $2,000 plus the $2,600 to each commissioner, but you're not going to automatically get a paycheck. It's, if you're using funds for your job as a commissioner, then you will get reimbursed for it.
yeah, I agree with that, but limiting it to the salary. Otherwise, we're not saving anything.
Right.
So there's a pot of money, and each commissioner has a pot of money to use, and they can use it as they see fit. It's very simple. You deduct throughout the year. It gets deducted. It's easy to keep track of.
Okay. I suspect that kind of change is going to happen through maybe an ordinance, or, I was looking in the charter, and there isn't anything in the charter that sets the commission salaries, but it's something we'll have to formalize it through a different process than tonight.
I think you should wait until the next commission comes in.
Okay, so you want to just table this and continue it to the next week's? It's just something to think about, and we can pick it up next week. All right, next, the only other comment I had on that is professional fees. The $3,500, was that, what was that for? And there's nothing budgeted this year.
Looking at the notes from last year, it was budgeted for audit for the foundation. But that's only if they receive more than $5,000 a year. I checked with the president of the foundation, and they have not exceeded that amount.
Okay,
So that's why I took it out.
all right.
So then, can we add that item, maybe it's not $3,500, maybe it's $2,000, for a strategic planning session after the election?
But we've had strategic planning sessions. I don't know that we need $3,500 to have one. We can have it here, and in other words, I don't think we need a professional to come in and tell us. It's more like a motivational. I don't need that we need a professional for us to have a visioning session. I think we know the village more than anyone else. And so, again, this is $3,500 here, $2,000 here.
I think we can benefit from a facilitator in the conversation, because, just listen to us speaking here, kind of in circle. I think we need someone to help us push through that process in a linear fashion.
Our manager.
We're not going to do that ourselves.
Our new manager. She's...
I'm hoping she will be part of the conversation. So, she couldn't moderate and be part of the conversation.
We did last time.
Yeah, I'm comfortable having the visioning session without that
Okay, I have just one other
assistance.
question.
But how about do you want to...
I'll treat it as group therapy, and I'll do it for nothing.
All right, yes.
Yeah. I just wanted, because Maria and I talked about this afternoon, but in the promotional activities, budgeting $2,500, special events, plaques, and flowers, and we did spend all of that $2,500 last year. But then I asked you that we paid for the Miami Shores Chamber of Commerce reception, and that money came back. Is that listed in here as the money coming back somewhere?
Yes, in revenues.
Under revenues, okay. So then how much did we spend taking that amount out?
Maybe it was $150, $200 at the most.
Okay. So where did, I mean, for plaques and flowers, that's an awful lot of money.
Well, wait a minute, doesn't that include the new building plaque,
Yeah.
the $2,500
No,
that
that
we
plaque
spent?
was done last fiscal year.
It was?
Yeah. We moved
Okay.
in August of last year.
Okay.
Okay, so I think on that, and plaques, I was thinking plaques are proclamations given to framing for people, but I think that there
Yeah,
might be...
we've done it, most of them, but we have, yeah, flowers, we've had, those kinds of things.
I know, does that include the holiday wreath?
What holiday wreath?
The big holiday wreath that was on the door of the...
No, I paid for that myself.
Oh, my God. Okay, I just think that we could go down, just try to limit ourselves to $1,500 and just see what happens.
So can we talk about the plaque that's needed to commemorate this building? And
We
to
didn't do it.
acknowledge the people that helped us get it together, get the funding and all that? I mean, I think, deserves it.
I think it can wait.
I think leave that $2,500 there, and that will go ahead, and we have the money to work with to go ahead and have a plaque for the building here.
And when Vice Mayor Ross mentioned that, that's where I penciled it in to come up from that line item.
All right, yeah, I did, okay, all right, we'll move on. Next, administration. Commissioner Jonas, why don't we start at that end?
No, I got nothing.
Nothing, okay.
Nope.
So,
Vice Mayor Ross?
yeah, when I looked at the staffing list,
The what?
the list of salaries, staff salaries,
Oh, yeah.
Each of you have it.
yeah. Well, first of all, let me take a step back, because I noticed that the organizational chart changes staffing structure. It moves in a lead position in Public Works, which is going to be, I guess, strictly outdoors kind of thing, and building maintenance. And it removes the service manager. What we had before was like an umbrella service manager that also supervised code and building. And so I think that that's going to leave a gap in supervision for those two building and code departments. But more so, my concern is that we're rearranging the structure, and I'm thinking, why not leave the status quo, let the new manager come in and decide how she wants to structure her staff, rather than making these adjustments already for the people that we have here, and then it could be changed in 60 days from now.
So the change that you're referring to is just the elimination of the Public Services Director?
Right.
Okay.
And that
Well,
doesn't-
when you look at the organizational chart, there's a new Public Works lead person,
In Public Works.
and
Right, the
And so-
manager.
and so he's removed, that position is removed from
General
code
government.
and building, general government.
It's removed from general government only. It was never in code, it was never in building.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
but that former position had a supervisory capacity over those two departments. I mean, I'm not sure that it works, which way it works better, but I think that rather than make an adjustment now and then have the new manager make a different adjustment after she's got, command.
Unless I misunderstood, I was following the directive of the commission not to
Yeah.
fill that position.
Yeah, I
Correct.
think so,
Right,
yes,
in other words,
correct.
that is correct.
Yeah, in other words, this chart can be changed later, but even if you change this chart, we're still only budgeting we're not budgeting for what was Kristen's position?
Public Services Manager.
Public
correct.
Services Manager, we're not budgeting for that.
No.
So-
Right, but we're budgeting for a Public Works
We
lead person.
desperately need a Public Works manager.
And Christian didn't fill that role.
Because we haven't had one for too long.
Is that the way it used to be
Yeah.
prior to
Yes.
I think that's a
Okay.
decision for the new manager to make when she
We're
assesses her
budgeting-
staff.
We're budgeting for that position. So since we're budgeting, we need to have on the org chart showing that that position exists. Because right now, our Public Works Department has nobody that really can go ahead and help with the finance of that department and really understands, all the different, venues that Public Works needs to get into. And to work with your different vendors that they deal with to really understand and to go ahead and getting competitive bids. We don't have the staff for that. We need to get somebody that has this kind of an expertise in there.
Right. If I were the manager, and I'm not the person making that decision, we hired a professional to make that decision, but if I were, I would want to hire someone with a number 2 person in the hierarchy with multiple disciplines that could handle the public works issues, but could also handle permitting questions and code questions. And I would want that person even to have some code training.
I disagree, Mayor.
Well,
Can I say,
if you
master
go-
of all trades and, jack of all trades and master of none.
If you take a
We get
look,
to.
if you take a look of what it would take to be a manager of Public Works, to get somebody that really fully understands Public Works is a number that we can't afford. And so I'm hoping we can get somebody that has at least a pretty strong background on it. It's probably going to be a part-time person because back years ago, when the commissioners ran different departments, I had to hire a Public Works director. And this is a lot of years ago. To get the full qualifications, nobody applied that wanted less than $150,000 at that point. We had to settle for somebody less, and that person was here not very long and had to be fired. So, we're a fish out of water right now. We need to have the expertise in there, and to think you're going to have somebody that also has expertise on building and expertise on code, I wish you luck and try to find that person.
And
Yeah.
I think, too, that we, at least I did when I spoke with all of the potential village manager candidates and said, are you able to do this job alone? Can you do this? There was a lot of controversy about that second-in-command position, however it was titled, and I received the guarantee that, yes, I can handle this on my own. And as much as our last Public Works or Public Communications or whatever what the name of the thing was, Christian was absolutely the nicest guy in the world. I really, really liked him, and he gave us an awful lot, but he really wasn't suited to, didn't have the knowledge to be overseeing Public Works. And I think that's what we need.
And when we get into like code, you figure hopefully the person we're trying to hire as our manager, the contract works out that we have that one. This is this person's background. So really, on managing, you need to have good people under you so you don't have to be putting out fires. And what we had before, it was a lot of fires going on because people weren't qualified for a lot of their positions.
Okay. I agree with what my 2 colleagues over here have said. I thought we already had this discussion of not filling the position. So, we can have the discussion on the Public Works when we get to Public Works, but on the administration side, I'm comfortable with what's been presented,
Which is what?
which is not refilling sort of a position below the manager,
And leaving York,
like an umbrella position.
Yeah, I think in a way we're having the wrong conversation. I don't think it's the job of the commission to identify which offices in the village should be filled in terms of the functional offices. That's up to the manager. What I think we have to do is state what our goals are in terms of what work should be done, what areas are most important to us, and leave it to the manager to figure out who ought to be hired, what capacity, what they oversee. The previous commission was persuaded 2 managers ago that we needed somebody in that in that position, and this commission was persuaded that we still did. So the previous commission allowed for the hiring of Candido Sosa Cruz, and this commission allowed to continue that position and hire somebody else. When we decided not to fill the position, I thought it was a mistake because we had no indication that the work did not need to be done, and we were just trying to save money, but it didn't seem like it made a lot of sense other than just to save the money. And I'd really rather leave it up to our new manager, keep every position funded, and if she feels that she doesn't need to spend the money and hire those people, fine, then she'll put that money into the reserves, and the next commission will make different decisions at budget time next year. But I wouldn't want to handicap the incoming manager just because we have some idea that doesn't really make any sense.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Ross, anything further on that?
I don't think that we should restructure. I think we should leave it for her to restructure, but I've already said that.
Okay.
My other comment was there's a position for a administrative clerk part-time.
I'm sorry, that's not in the administration.
Are we on administration?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, the administration part-time is under general government.
Right. Oh, you're right. The village, you're right.
Okay. Just on salaries, I have two comments.
Okay.
One is that the Miami-Dade County living wage for the year 16-17 is $12.83 per hour when you're offering health benefits. And last year we agreed and we've raised everybody to the living wage. Although that is a part-time position and it doesn't offer health benefits, I think it has to be a minimum of
So that'll be in general
$12.83
government,
an
we'll
hour.
add that.
Okay.
If that's what we want to do. But the other thing I wanted to bring up about salaries is that there are new federal limits on people that can be considered, people that can be salaried and therefore not paid overtime. And I know we have a number of employees that are under that, were under that umbrella where they are not paid overtime. But the new guidelines won't allow us to exempt those positions from overtime if they are paid less than $47,476 a year. And looking at this list
But
of...
we're on administration right now, just the minute.
Okay, this is...
Okay, go ahead. I'm just trying to keep some structure.
The positions under administration are the clerk, the manager, and the clerk, right?
Yep.
So the clerk's salary, annual, will be $30,770.
No,
No?
no, that's only for part of the year.
No, you see, what she's done, there's going to be overlap. When Maria retires, there's going to be a new village clerk, correct? So you put
Right.
two clerks here for that training period, right? That overlap? Is that why you broke it down there?
53.
Correct.
Okay.
So it contemplates hiring a new village clerk
Right.
in January. And the salary for that village clerk through September 30th is $30,000.
Correct. But their hourly rate equates to $40,000 a year. And that's, I believe, what you would have to
Yeah.
then go to the guidelines.
And so the guideline says that if you employ someone who makes less than $47,476, they are not exempt, they are not salaried, and you have to pay them overtime.
Correct. So in this case, for the new clerk coming in at $40,000, he or she would fall under that guideline.
Okay, so I'm sorry for the long explanation, but therefore, I know you put in more than 40 hours a week, and that was before you became the manager.
Correct.
We will have to pay that clerk overtime hours, and so that's an appropriate budgeted line item for
Or,
administration.
if they work late on a commission meeting day, they come in late the next day.
Right.
Yes.
You don't have to do
And
overtime.
do you think that the job can be done? Because then you're limiting to 40 hours, and do you think the job could be done at 40 hours? Because I know that you put in 50 or 55 hours a week, so,
Okay.
and you work exceptionally fast. So I think that...
With another...
Let me say this, and I think I've shared this with you. With the prior manager, under Manager Garcia, I always felt that I was delegated a lot of stuff not under village clerk. When Manager Siegel came in, she had a phrase that she used: "Stay in your swim lane." Just stay to do, because we would overlap in what we were doing. So if we continue to doing only what is required of the village clerk and what those procedures are, I feel that a person could stay within the 40 hours and not have overtime, to adjust schedules when they have to stay late. And you can ask my husband. I am Maria. I tend to work extra and whatever, help out in other departments, so don't necessarily use how I've worked. But I don't feel like we need to, I understand this new guideline. I don't feel that we really necessarily need to budget overtime, unless it's a small amount, I would think.
Well,
Okay,
wait,
that's what I hear about the police budget every year, and every year we
Two
go
different
over,
things,
so...
two different things.
Yeah, but there's a
Two
reason for
different
that.
things.
Let me just ask a question. What is the total salary that, a full year for the new village clerk, what are you assigning?
40,000.
Okay, but how did you come up with that? Is that?
I think that's what I started. That was my
Okay,
starting salary.
But, I mean, if we're going to be competitive and get somebody,
Yeah.
we need to know what the
Could be 40 to
current...
45, yeah.
Okay.
One question.
Currently, I'm at 7 years in, I'm at 52.
And I think that the salary should be contingent upon whether or not the person is a certified village clerk, and the salary could go up, so maybe we could put some leeway there.
Correct.
And then also, haven't you put in for an administrative clerk, a part-time person to help in administration under?
And that's a good point. I'm glad you reminded me. I am putting proposing a part-time administrative clerk to primarily work for code, but also in the org chart, you see that person would also assist other departments.
Right.
And that could be for the clerk, that could be for other departments.
Yeah.
Because I also utilize, Mylan, our current administrative clerk, but she's limited as far as her knowledge on computers or everything like that. This administrative clerk, that if we do hire that part-time one, I'm going to make sure that their skills on computers is much more. Again, taking that away from the village clerk to do, which I do 100% now.
But to Vice Mayor Ross's point, I'm sorry, one last thing.
Okay.
The figure that we need to get to not have to pay hourly and overtime is what?
47.
47.
Why don't we think of, if we advertise having the range 40 to 47, see what we get, and then we'll see if we're paying 47, then we don't need to have the fear of paying excessive amounts in overtime.
If that's the case, then we would
But
need
if
to...
it's someone
We
with
need to
very
budget
experienced.
for-
If
Yeah,
that's the
what I
case, we
mean.
would need to budget for 47 in
Right.
this budget, which right now I'm only budgeting for 40.
But Maria, you're saying that if somebody stayed in their lane, then they wouldn't work overtime anyway.
I think we could do some adjustments. I really feel that, if the person is here until 9 o'clock at a meeting, throughout the week, they can leave early that 1 month a year, that one time a year. One time a month, I'm sorry.
No,
For a meeting.
I'd be more comfortable if we did budget for 47.
Okay?
Not necessarily we're going to be hiring and paying that person 47, but we budgeted so whatever we hire them for the salary, we have built in on this budget if needed some overtime.
So you're saying budget for the 47, correct?
Budget for the 47.
Yeah, I agree.
And so if we're paying them less than 47,
Right.
at least we have some money built in there for overtime.
I have one worry about that, because it seems that we, whenever we advertise a job for, say, 80 to 85, we give 85, and we give the most. So perhaps an 80.
All right, other comments? Are you okay with?
47,476.
What?
47,476.
47,476.
47.5.
Okay. Is there a consensus with that? Yes? Okay.
Okay, so I'll make that adjustment.
The other comment I had, or question, to Deus monitors, where did that come from?
Again, right now, all of you can't see what's being displayed here.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
So if you would want to have, I saw that in another city, and that's something that we had always talked about before when we were going to have the electronics up here during this. It would be, you would be able to see, if somebody came in a presentation and did it here, you would be able to see it in front of you.
yeah, I think it goes along, in a perfect world, yes, but
Okay.
in these times, I would say remove the $2,300 for that.
I concur.
Yes.
I disagree, because I think for what's shown on the monitor, especially if it's a presentation from some vendor or somebody else that has looked into our system, to be able to sit here and try to see what the audience is seeing and what they're trying to explain. I was talking to Maria, what I would like to do is even put some more money in there. I think where the podium is, there ought to be a camera there. So whoever's standing up in that podium is trying to go ahead and gives any kind of a presentation, and they have some papers there, everybody can see it, the audience can look at it. Right now, when somebody is given some kind of a presentation, they hand the commission the sheets of paper, the commission gets to see it, the audience are blind to it, they see nothing. And I think,
It's just that we don't, I understand what you're saying, it's just that we don't have, other cities have the volume of, for example, construction, building projects and planning and zoning matters. So I don't know, to me, I think we can make do for now with how we're working. And in the future, if suddenly we have much more money, we can add that. But, and then also along the same lines, a laptop computer, is that for who?
This is mine,
Oh, okay.
so we would have to replace
It
this
needs
one.
to be replaced.
Yeah, okay. Roy doesn't know it's here.
Okay.
Just want to throw that out there.
and I concur with the meeting timer, that's desperately needed.
Yeah, your meeting timer would go with me, because this is what I use for my meeting timer.
Okay.
I talked with... Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
No. Well, Mayor, I talked with Maria about this. The laptop computer, she's going to give me the list of things that she needs, like how much memory and stuff like that, because I think that years ago, a laptop cost thousands of dollars, but now it doesn't. And as an FIU employee, I can get a discount with Dell, and I'm going to find out whether or not we could probably get something for less than $1,200 that is loaded with everything that she needs.
Okay, Vice Mayor Ross?
So why do we need 9 monitors?
Did I put, I think for everybody that's here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, just to be ready for that.
You know those people? You know those people? Okay.
And I just want to say, as a Plan B, I use that as just contemplating that, none of you would have laptops. As a Plan B, for those of you that have laptop, there is something that we could put in, some kind of a Google type of thing, that you could connect remotely to what is being viewed on that monitor. So this might encourage the new commissioners that come in to bring in their own laptop.
Right.
Commissioner Watts and Commissioner Jonas.
Right. And I'd rather see us, and I sort of would rather see us go that way, because the dummy monitor is kind of old technology. If we all had our tablets and we can connect.
Correct. As long as you have a
Bluetooth
tablet.
connection or a hard connection, then, I'd rather see us use that $200 a piece to get a tablet. And you could put your agenda on there, and it seems like a
It's up to you.
more versatile use of the money.
Okay, so consensus to remove that?
Yes.
Yes.
Consensus to remove?
Yep.
The 20,
No,
For
I'm
the-
saying use it for a tablet.
A tablet for each person, I mean, what, I can't think of a situation where we've had a difficulty,
Well,
You
you could just walk around out there. Yeah.
I mean, to me, these are just perks, and it's just,
$2,300?
Still.
I know, but
Every $2,300 adds up, and we've been fine. We've been managed fine so far. I don't think that we need to spend this, especially when we've got so much debt to cover and depleted reserves. I think it's icing on the cake. We have to distinguish between what we need, really need, and
$2,300,
what
we could
want.
landscape the new building. We could, I mean, all these little things, we don't have the,
Okay, can we say we're going to use the $2,300 for landscaping?
when we
have to
get there, sure.
Yeah.
I just want to
So-
remind everybody, before we used to have the PowerPoint projector, and everybody could be looking at a screen, and we could all follow it. Now what we have is a screen behind here, that not every commissioner can see the screen very well from where they're sitting here.
Yes, and I objected to it at the time.
But what's on the screen is usually, you can get a hard copy as well. You know, usually it's what we have in front of us, it's just, they don't have what's in front of us, so we put it on the screen.
Okay. Mayor, I have one more thing on this section.
Okay?
Okay, I know it's like beating a dead horse, but I'm going to beat it anyway. On the village manager, for the phone stipend is $140 per month. I propose, sort of in line with what Commissioner Ross was suggesting for the village commission, that we just find out what the village manager pays for her phone and pay her that amount. And I would guess that it's a lot less than $140
But we've already
a month.
negotiated a contract on that.
Okay, said dead horse. But I think it's just we're throwing money away.
Okay. All right, and anything else on administration?
Yes.
Okay.
Education and training. Professional development is actually one of our obligations under the village manager's contract. And thinking not only for the village manager, but for the clerk, because right now we don't know who that person is going to be and whether they need additional training. $1,500, I don't believe is going to be enough to cover those two positions for them to be able to go to an annual conference or to a symposium. We had budgeted last year 2,000, and I'd like to put it back to 2,000.
I disagree. I think that perhaps in the next year we could do that, but seeing this time, well, the money that was spent was only $900 at the projected here to September, 900 of 2,000. And our former village manager did go to lots of conferences, and I think that perhaps this very first year with our first village manager, she may not have time to go to all of those conferences. So
But-
I think that that's it's just funny money going into there, and I think that we should.
But
let-
didn't the contract provide for us paying for certain associations, and so is that budgeted
So part of it
for?
is that your memberships, that's another
Right.
line item.
Yeah.
And the other one is the education and training.
I think just like last year it was budgeted for 2,000 and we only spent 9, budgeting 2,000 doesn't mean that we're going to spend it all, but we have 2 new people coming in, we don't know the training that the clerk is going to need.
You know, I think we should hire people that don't need all that much training once in a while. I mean,
We don't know if that pool of people is going to be available for us.
Let me ask, is the memberships, is that consistent with the contract amount?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Every one of those organizations is included.
okay. All right, is any other thoughts on Vice Mayor Ross's suggestion? Leave as is? Leave as is. Okay, all right. Finance?
I do have one for
Yes.
for administration. Municipal elections. I budgeted 10,000. I had not yet received my quote from Miami-Dade County. This will be our first year piggybacking with a general election. I received it today. We are quoted as $3,900 for our elections.
Nice.
The last time we had an election, we paid $10,500. So I would like to budget, just in case for any incidentals or anything like that, I'd like to decrease that 10,000 to 5,000.
Perfect. Okay. Are you going to be able to produce at the next meeting what we cut from the budget and amount so that we can reassign
Yes.
it? Or,
And kind of maybe like a running totals of pluses and minuses.
okay. All right, finance? The only thing actually, I have nothing on finance. Want to go first?
Well, it's more of a budget question, well, both. For the audit fees, which is 513, 532, we budgeted 22,000. Through June 30th, we only paid $2,000. That sort of supports my thinking that we really haven't done anything with regard to our audit yet.
Because it's usually billed
At the
at
end?
the completion of the audit. There have been no expenses on the
Yeah,
audit.
and
They don't charge us monthly, it's at the
You wanna buy
end.
that?
No, I think that generally you pay a certain amount up front and then you pay the balance at the end.
No,
Oh, you're telling
never.
us that's not how it works?
No, that's at the end.
Okay.
I have-
Also,
And the reason why I decreased it is because part of that auditing is for other funds as well. So well, we are obligated contractually with our agreement that we have with the auditors. The other portion is in the other fund.
In roads, right?
And I believe it's in roads or sanitation. I didn't have a chance to look it up.
I have a question on the bank service charges. Is that for checking accounts, or
Where am I?
that's, five,
Yeah, I believe it would be
53.
all our bank accounts.
Right,
It would be all of our bank accounts.
because, I would like to see us go ahead and actually have a separate bank account for sanitation.
Okay. That's something that, has been mentioned. I know that the way it comes in from our ad valorem, it comes in one lump sum. So I believe that's something that perhaps we need to do some more research, what other cities do. So I left that as a separate thing to discuss with the new manager.
Because if we end up doing that, is that going to increase the service charge, or if that did?
All those things had to be considered.
Right, and would
That's
that
a good point.
And would that fall under sanitation then, with expenses, or
We
would
might
that
have to
fall
put some
under-
of those charges there.
Okay.
That's correct. So that's something that we can look at throughout the year, and then when we set our sanitation fund next year, that could be considered, and we can make that decision. We're going to make that now 2 separate funds,
All right.
or 2 separate accounts, bank accounts.
Okay. Vice Mayor Ross, anything else on finance?
Nope.
Commissioner Jonas?
Oh, the finance director, I think his salary is above that 47,000 threshold,
Yeah, 50.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Planning?
General government?
Planning.
Planning,
Next one is
correct?
planning.
Yeah.
All of our prior fees, that 14,000 was for annexation. So therefore, as far as for the next fiscal year, I only planned for maybe perhaps any zoning and code rewrites that we have been discussing.
Yeah, I think that's critical, that we do that sooner rather than later. I'm just concerned, do we have an idea as to what
No.
that's going to cost? Did
No.
you? Because I have a feeling it's going to be more than $10,000. I mean, it's not going to be a gigantic endeavor. It should be a relatively short code, but can you do some
I'll try.
homework just to get an idea?
Mayor, what you're talking about is having the company come in to rewrite all
Yeah,
of
having
our code?
a planner come in and create a new simplified code.
Right, so it makes sense where you can find things, okay.
Exactly.
That's a good idea.
One note that I had here, just a reminder, remember Manager Siegel had put through a grant request, but then we
Yes,
said that let's
yes.
stop. So I believe that was in my mind when I considered this, because if we get money from a grant to match it or whatever, that'll pay some of the expenses. But I'll do some research on that to see if I can get an amount.
All right. Anything else on planning? Okay. Are we going through,
General
Just,
government?
I happen to have the resolution that we were considering back then, and it was, the grant was for a range of 25 to 40,000. So
Yeah.
if that's in line with what the cost is, I don't know.
Yeah.
can I don't know if this is appropriate, but I worked with a planner that prepared the City of Dural's code, and that's what he does. I can give you his name and number.
Please.
Just
Please,
to get
that'd be great.
To get a ballpark. Okay, general government?
Yeah, if I could start off, this is where the public services manager salary used to be, so that's taken out. And this is where I am proposing to put in a part-time administrative clerk, primarily to assist for the clerical duties for code, and then to also help out with other departments as well.
It looks like what you have is 15,500.
How many hours is that per week?
24 hours a week.
Yeah, I'd like to see that increased. I think we need a person here longer.
Okay. Let me just make
I mean,
sure
we-
how many hours I did. Yeah, I did 3 days, so it'd be 24 hours.
Yeah, I'd like to see it increase for a 32-hour position. doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be doing it for sure at 32 hours, but I think, 24 is not going to be enough to...
24 times.
But is this primarily to help with code with Reggie?
That's primary, but the secondary is to help out in the other departments where needed.
Because I'm going to suggest that we look at code and add another code officer. So, and that way Reggie and the other code officer could split their time in the field and be able to do the administrative work as well. I don't know if we have a budget for that, but I'd like to at least discuss it.
Well, when I looked at, what Reggie was doing, our code officer, he spends an enormous amount of time doing clerical things, doing the agenda for the meeting, doing, just printing out the citations from the BS&A system, now the administrative citations, writing up, the courtesy notices. I felt, wow, he could be out there on the streets, come back, give this clerk all his assignments to do, he can go back right out there. If we add another officer, I think we discussed it last year, you have two people doing a lot of clerical functions. So that was my thinking. Get our code officer out there on the streets 39 hours a week, as opposed to right now, 20, 25 hours a week, and the rest is spent inside the office.
And I think it'd be more efficient having somebody whose background is clerical. I think they're going to be a lot more efficient than to have somebody that's partially clerical and then out there physically dealing with people. I'd rather see, and I think it makes a lot more sense, having that person out there deal with the people, take a look at what's going on, and then come back here from time to time and just hand off that to the clerical person. And when the clerical person happens to be all caught up, then they can help out in other departments. Otherwise, code needs a lot of help right now, and I think this is a good way of doing it.
Mayor? May I?
Sure.
I agree to a certain extent with Commissioner Anderson, and I think though we might think about, yes, hiring a second code officer next year if this doesn't work out. But again, I think that some people have different talents, and some are very slow with writing up reports and doing that and being organized. And if you get someone who's naturally talented as a clerk or an organization, someone who's like Channel's Maria, that all that onerous paperwork could be done in a snap, and it would take a lot of load off of Reggie, I think.
I'm curious as to where this is coming from. Is this just our thinking about what would help Reggie or help code, or has Reggie said something to the effect that he can't do enough out in the field because he's too busy with paperwork? I mean, he didn't say that to me. Maybe he said it to somebody else.
It's my observation for sure.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
observations. When you stop over here at the hall, you'll see that most of the time our code officer's sitting in here doing paperwork, not out in the field.
You might observe that he's here at Village Hall, but the question is, do we have some reason to think that he's not doing the job he could be doing if he was spending more time in the field? It's a very small place, and he feels, what he said to me is that he has a good finger on the pulse around here. He knows everybody's situation, he's in touch with them, and I just wonder, do we have some reason to think he's wrong about that?
Well, if you drive around through the village, you're going to see all kinds of things that code needs to be addressing, and they haven't.
Well,
Because
Reggie's
he
not
doesn't
going to
have-
cut somebody's grass for them. All he can do is cite them, and if they still don't fix it, then we can put a lien. But the presence of Reggie or 10 Reggies is not going to change anybody else's behavior.
Okay, like you said, he can't go cut the grass, but he can cite them.
He does.
You take a look at, start checking, looking at these properties, and then go ahead and talk to the code officer and find out, have they been cited? Take a look at the garbage cans. You can go ahead, and I can keep going, look at the conditions of properties. Take a look at them, go talk to the code officer and see if they've been cited. Have they been to the code board yet?
Have you done that?
Yes, I have on a number of them.
What does he say to you?
No, he hasn't.
Why not? Because he doesn't have time because he's too busy doing paperwork?
He never told me he didn't have enough time. Hasn't done it.
So maybe he's the wrong guy, but what I'm saying is, why do we need 2 Reggies?
You don't need 2
Maybe the job
Reggies.
doesn't need 2 Reggies.
You need one code officer, and you need a clerk to go ahead and do the
Well,
paperwork.
that's what Maria said.
That's what I'm recommending.
See, here's where we could really use the benefit of having
Right.
the new
Right.
manager here.
And I know the manager will assess his strengths and his weaknesses when it comes to code enforcement, bringing in new techniques, bringing in whatever. But I do see the extraordinary amount of time that he spends in the system with paperwork, and this is where I felt that, we could assist in that, as well as assisting other departments.
Could we, okay, go ahead.
Okay, could we put it in the budget, and then we can always change the budget, correct? If the village manager thinks that has other thoughts about it after she observes what's going on?
If it's in the budget, those are dollars, not necessarily they need to be spent or hired. But I think that we ought to have it in the budget, and I think the dollars in that budget ought to be for a 32-hour person. Whether the new manager feels that's needed or not, that's up to the new manager, but I think we definitely need to have it in the budget, and it's the new manager's choice. If we
Right, I
don't
agree- I
have
agree with
that,
you.
we have exactly what's been going on, and I don't think, observation-wise, I think we can do a lot better.
And I think, too, that if we put in the budget the money that it would cost for if it is a clerk, if the clerk is not at level 1 code, I mean, the village clerk, I think Christian did that, too, took the class to get some knowledge of code.
All right, I mean, if it's okay with everyone, let's leave it as you propose with that part-time position, but I'd like to revisit it. I'd like to give it some more thought and revisit it next week.
I'd like to increase it for 32 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's fine. And then we can revisit it next week.
So there's consensus to increase that to 32 hours?
But we keep talking about this part-time person that's going to be doing code work, and it's in general government.
Because he's also going to help other departments.
Right.
You mean a part-time person?
I don't want to
who's a
limit that
clerk?
person just to code, so that's why I felt putting it in general government. Because they're going to be answering phones. It's sort of like what I have right now with the temp. She is helping Reggie right now. She is helping Claude right now. She's answering telephones. But, so if I bring somebody in, now, your first priority is to get Reggie's work done, but you're also helping answer the phones, you're also helping people at the front desk. That's why I geared them back to general government.
I'm fine with leaving it and increasing it, but I want to revisit some of these things as we get to after the second workshop, knowing like what we saved and kind of reevaluate. So that's one of them.
So if we increase it to 32 hours a week, and I want us to be responsible employers, and at a certain point, you have to offer people health insurance.
Right.
I mean, are we just shaving just under that to get away with not offering health insurance? That, I don't think is the responsible thing to do.
I agree. If you're taking that much of somebody's time, you gotta take care of them.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah, like I said, let's put that.
It is something to think about. I would like, when we revisit this again, Maria, if you could just have that number of what it would be.
Okay, what else on general government?
I have something.
Yep.
Okay, Maria and I talked about this afternoon. I was rather taken aback at the prices for some of the IT professional services. And we're paying CSS IT Solutions $600 a month. So that's like $7,200 a year. And then we've got, for the police, this Loxia Computer Services at $700 a month, so $8,400. And I was wondering whether or not we might look into bundling these services rather than having separate contracts, that we might save some money.
What is Loxia?
This was something that was started with Manager Siegel and the chief. For FDLE certification, we need to have a separate computer system. Right. And then we have to have our service provider be FDLE certified. CSSI was not. So we were able to get Loxia to come in here. Now, could Loxia also do our side of it? yes, we can look at that, but right now we are in a contract with CSSI.
For how long?
So I think another year. Okay, so that is why we have the two separate in there. I'll look at that one more time to see if maybe mid-year we can break with CSSI, so I'll confirm that.
And why isn't Loxia under the police budget as opposed to general government?
Because anything IT-related, I'd like to keep under, I prefer to keep all of IT-related items under one line item. We've had that before in previous budgets where we separate things out by department, and we've had issues where things get lost, things get misposted. Again, anything IT-related, we only have to go to one line item to know all those costs associated.
And I completely agree, because it's so easy, since it's easy
Right.
to spot. We have two different companies servicing our computers. If these were spread apart, it's a little harder to track down that we're...
We have the same situation with electrical, used to be by department. Our insurance used to be separated by department, it just caused a lot of problems.
Yeah. But we could just keep in mind when we get to the police budget that we have to add in our mind's eye, that another $7,000.
But it is being covered under general government.
Okay, I have another line item, which is 519,541. Under there's audio equipment, log cabin, 382.52 a month.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
I'm sorry, which item?
The audio equipment
Audio
for the...
equipment for the
Yes.
log cabin?
Gee, that sounds familiar.
That's for the equipment right behind you.
So we're leasing that?
That's a question I put out to the phone doctor. I haven't got a response back, so I'll get that for you.
We don't know if we're leasing it or not?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a purchase, a lease purchase. I just discovered what that was about a month ago when I was okaying the bills, because of the way it came in and the way it's described. I didn't know if it was our phone system, and I finally was able to identify by the serial numbers that it was this.
Okay, because I remember asking the question whether we had paid for this equipment or not, and I was told, no, we hadn't paid for it yet.
Right.
And there was even some issue as to whether we were going to keep this TV or change it to something else, so...
And again, all those, the purchasing, the getting it, the installing of it was done prior with manager here, so I'm now kind of learning these things as I go along, so...
All right, so you'll find out about that
Yes.
equipment.
And how long the payment goes on for.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Also, I was looking at the multiple Comcasts.
Yeah, me too.
You know, it seems really expensive for each one of our locations.
That is all for internet, except for the rec center, that's for internet and the phone line.
But what, $220 a month per location for internet seems
Yeah, it's-
high.
No, the 220 is for the village hall and for the police. And if I
220
remember, you were
each.
saying each. If I
Separate
remember,
system.
these are all separate contracts that we have?
Yes.
We can't
And
bundle?
so,
Just to separate these out was a mission in itself. So now I have all the accounts separated, and now it's something that I need to bring in the Comcast rep, but it's like you said, everything is tied to a contract. If I touch one, we're going to get termination fees. So now that I have them all listed out, I'm going to have Comcast come in, not an easy thing to do with Comcast, and say, here's our accounts. Am I getting my government rates? Am I getting the even across the board? So we will be doing that.
Okay.
And I forgot, I know I asked you what exactly, but the Avaya phone system?
Is our phone system at,
Oh, yeah.
at Village Hall.
Seems ridiculous.
My other question was the 2007 Toyota Corolla,
Where is that?
5460000. What, is that is that Reggie's car, or is that?
No, that's we call the government car.
Okay.
That's that greenish, grayish one.
Is Reggie's car in here as well?
It's under code compliance.
Oh, okay.
I have a question, Maria knows, about the postage meter. I wondered if we can, we're renting this, and there are many companies that will sell you that, and you have to put things in before you get a quote. But I was wondering if we're paying $105 4 times a year, how much a postage meter really costs, that we might just purchase one rather than...
Most places actually lease it. I don't know if we lease it from Pitney Bowes.
Because there's Cutney Barnes,
Both,
yeah.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's basically standard.
And it comes in, any postage increases automatically updates. I was thinking about that afterwards. It's automatically updated, it's got all the rates in there, so you do kind of get a service behind it. We're able to fill the money into it all remotely online, so they do provide a service with that $100 per quarter.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on general government? No? Okay. Police, before we get to police, I just want to, a number of people made public comments about certain issues. My opinion is that I want to wait until we get to the end of the workshop to kind of reevaluate where everything falls, to see what savings we made, and then we'll discuss those issues. So, just to let you know, that's what I'm thinking. Okay, police.
Well, I'm glad, we had a little discussion on overtime, but I'm glad we actually put a realistic number, because for the last few budgets, we were always under budgeting, and of course, that overtime exceeded what was budgeted. At least now we have a realistic number in there.
Can we, I don't know if we're able to disclose this or discuss it, but Chief, a big reason for the overtime is because we have one officer, correct? That contributes, that has not worked but is being paid, and therefore our working police officers need to cover those shifts, correct? Is that a reason for one of the reasons for the overtime?
It's one of the contributing factors. There are others.
Okay.
What others are there?
Well, in this fiscal year, we made the decision to let the officers have vacations and to comply with the contract, which requires that 2 officers be on every shift. The police department's not staffed to take into account when officers have a training day or they're sick or they're on vacation. We don't have that many officers. We're great if everybody's here, but anybody's off, it creates overtime.
Well, I had been thinking the way that Chuck Ross was thinking about a part-time officer, 20 hours a week. Would that help?
Full-time.
Well,
Or full-time? I mean, we can get $70,000 is overtime. It's more than one.
well, I think a person would have to be willing to, I don't even know if it's allowable, Maria and I would have to check. They'd have to work all kinds of different hours, because I can't know if tomorrow morning somebody's going to call in sick and maybe they work tonight, or maybe they were scheduled to work tomorrow night. Now we're calling them last minute, telling them days. I think our most flexibility is with the overtime, and I think if you hire another officer, you'll reduce the overtime budget somewhat, but not that much, not to justify hiring another officer. We can always use another police officer on patrol, but for the purpose of reducing the overtime budget, it's not going to be that effective. A little bit effective, but not effective like what you want to cut the entire, or you'd like to see a big chunk of that disappear. It will not happen through the addition of another officer.
So then, by that means the logic, when the officer who we're paying and who's not working comes back, we'll still have the same amount, basically the same amount of overtime.
No, ma'am, we would have less overtime, because some of that total amount of money is because that person is not physically here.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that was my point.
Because what we'll be doing, it would be the same thing. The money, the slight money that we'll be saving on overtime if we hired another officer would be the same thing, but it's built into the budget, that when we have the full staff back here, instead of paying an officer not being here, would be the same thing. It's going to help on the overtime. And this is something that I'm hoping within maybe the next 4 or 5 months, we finally can come to an end on this, but our hands are tied.
But are you suggesting hiring an officer to replace that officer, or hiring another officer on top of that?
No, I don't think that we should be hiring another officer, because eventually this case is going to come to an
No,
end.
right, so but, okay.
And because we're already paying for it. We don't need anybody else.
Understood, but if that person does not come back, you're going to replace that person because it's a
Yes.
body, okay, understood,
Of
okay.
course. I mean, it's in the budget.
Right, no,
that
no,
we're
okay,
working on.
I just want to make sure I understood.
And we actually need X amount of officers.
Right. Okay,
Is there anything we can do to push this process along? Because it's been at least 2 years that we've been in this limbo.
we've been pushing,
Chief.
we've
So help
received
me
promises.
help me understand how the overtime works, because our officers are on 12-hour shifts. So they're on a 12-hour shift, the person on the next shift calls out. What happens? That 12-hour, that officer who's worked 12 hours works another, continues to work?
God willing, no. That has happened a few times in the last year, but we try to get an officer that's not currently on duty to come in and fill a shift when there's a last-minute vacancy due to an illness or some other emergency. Most of our overtime however, is not because an officer calls out sick. We don't have that very often. It's vacations.
Is it possible to hire sort of a temporary officer? So you're hiring someone, you're not committing to keeping them forever, because then we can't get rid of them when we don't need them any longer. Is it possible to hire someone for a 6-month period?
But I believe it goes back to what the chief says, that's not going to be the solution to take the bite out of overtime.
But you don't think,
Hiring a new officer is not going to take the bite out of that overtime. It'll help it, but not,
how could it not?
Well, what hours would we have that new officer work?
No, I'm saying, once we get the full-time officer back, that's not going to take a significant,
That will, replacing, but I think Commissioner Ross is saying,
in the interim.
add an additional.
She's saying in the interim, before that step is made, before that action is taken. Can we have,
I don't know why we would want to, after 2 years, make a change now when we know that,
It's
it's
imminent,
most
right?
likely that this is, as the mayor says, imminent.
can we have like an open, when John is here next week, can we have an open discussion about this as to, no?
No. The FBI has instructed me not to talk about it.
Okay. All right,
Okay, I'm sort of at a loss, because we have a gap. There's a person that is not coming in for the hours, and we have a gap. So if we hired someone for 6 months to cover the hours that missing person isn't covering, how wouldn't that help?
The hours that another officer is needed are irregular. It's not a set time.
Are you saying that this missing officer would have worked irregular hours?
No, ma'am.
I don't get it.
What I'm saying is that when an officer's on vacation, they're not working the same days and the same hours. And when an officer calls in sick or has some type of family emergency, we can't anticipate that. We can't hire an officer under the existing contract rules and tell them they just work willy-nilly here on this day and these hours on that day. The PBA contract wouldn't, to my knowledge, the PBA contract would not allow us to do that.
So you figure, the officers are working, our police are here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You have multiple different shifts. On that given shift, somebody goes on vacation, a shift has to be covered. And to go ahead and have a person here for 6 months to be moved over to that shift and moved back, and like you said, in the PBA contract would. Right now, what you do is you go ahead, if we had all of our officers, when the shift opens up, one of the officers has to fill in for that shift, am I correct?
Yeah, we will go periods of time without needing any overtime. We could go a whole entire week without needing overtime, so then why are we having the other officer? And I don't know how you would schedule that person to
What if we hired somebody and their assignment description was that they float, and they agreed to be hired for that? So whenever we need them, that's when they work.
Oh, and
Can,
I have another...
I have a question.
You have a lot of PBA constraints on this.
I have a question. Can we discuss with our attorney, would it have to be in the shade, an in the shade meeting as to actions that, discuss our options legally with respect to this officer? Can we do that?
I can ask Attorney Hearn.
Can you ask him that? Because there are things that we can take affirmative steps independent of what's going on with the FBI, possibly. But I want to be told that.
I have another question.
I'll ask
Okay.
Attorney Hearn that.
Chief, isn't it now that the police officers work 12-hour shifts? Is that...
They currently work 12-hour shifts.
Okay, so then when there's someone else is needed because an officer calls in sick, all right, then you're going to, do you ask someone who's already worked 12 hours to do another shift immediately? I mean, how does that work?
I will typically be able to get somebody that's not on duty to work those hours.
Somebody on their day off.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to work, then the next day will be the regular day that person works. So
Not necessarily, no. There's no set rule or pattern as to who's going to fill in for that officer when they're unable to come in, for whatever the reason is.
Okay, because I'm just worried that you'll have exhausted
And so am I, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's something we're very conscious of, and that's why we don't like to have somebody that's already on duty for 12 hours work another 12-hour shift. I would also want to point out that sometimes reserve officers cover these shifts for us, and it saves us the overtime.
I mean, I think because of this one issue with this one officer can resolve a lot of the overtime issue. Can we discuss this with John Hearn for the next? You check with John Hearn to see if we can discuss it at a shade meeting, and then
Absolutely.
put this off until the next week's budget.
But just to be clear, having the officer back is going to save some of the overtime, but
Understood.
not most of it. Most of the overtime is still going to exist there, because even if the officer comes back today, that officer cannot simply be told to work, well, this officer's going to be on vacation this week, switch your hours and work. That they have set schedule. And anytime they change that schedule, it's going to incur overtime, whether that officer is here.
I think let's leave that line item alone. 75,000 is a number that we come real close to or hit over the last number of years. I think let's just leave that alone, knowing that we have an opportunity if we have another officer comes back to fill into the one who's not here, that it will help against that overtime.
If I may just tell you that a very significant thing that the loss of this officer has meant to us is that I'm not allowed to have a patrol supervisor out there. That patrol person acting as the patrol supervisor is trying to juggle being a patrol supervisor, administrative duties, running to 911 calls, and the other thing that it's prevented us from doing is pursuing our accreditation efforts, which we could really tackle when this officer returns to duty, or if we get a replacement officer, whichever.
So in your view, or in your estimate, what would it take to substantially reduce the overtime? Would it be hiring two officers, including the one that's missing, or that's?
Well, there is a formula for how many officers you need to eliminate overtime, and you'd need quite a few officers.
What's quite a few of those?
6, roughly, without doing the math, roughly 6 more officers to eliminate overtime.
And the cost of those 6 officers would far exceed the cost that we're paying in overtime?
Yes, and I don't even know what one officer would cost you when you have to factor in retirement and health insurance.
Excuse me.
60, about 60.
With burdens? Yeah, about 55, 60.
Including health insurance.
Including health insurance.
All right, in my view, let's get an answer on the other issue and then revisit it next week.
When we say $75,000, does that include, all the salary burdens, the FRS and the...
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I can't hear you.
Yes,
$75,000 includes salary
all the burdens, yes.
All right, anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, Chief, we talked about possibly adding a GPS kind of system to the police cars.
Yes.
Maintenance, we called it a fleet maintenance.
It's a GPS tracking system, and I noted to you in a conversation that it also does a lot more than that. Like, it would tell me when the cars need the oil changed, or the tires rotated, or transmissions serviced, or the coolants have to be...
So is that in this budget?
Yeah, it's here.
Miscellaneous operating supplies.
Police.
What's the number?
552.
552.
This is for $19 per month per vehicle.
Police vehicle tracking.
Okay.
Don't most cars today have little lights that pop up and tell you you've got to be serviced at such and such a time already?
This will give you more information than that. Depends upon the car, what they happen to have. But this is something, now you can go ahead and from this, you can print it out if you need to have your own records.
It's computerized. I mean, it kind of defeats having the computer program if you want to make hard copy records, but I would have to ask the vendor. I believe we can probably print it out in some format. But Commissioner, I wasn't going to use it to tell me what the oil change was. The purpose, it just happened to come with this add-on thing. And the purpose of me having it is it's a management tool. It lets me know where our cars are. It lets me know if an officer has parked all night when I'm not here or is actually out patrolling. It lets me know if, as a police department, we never cover Northeast 12th Court. This is the point of it, that it does this other stuff. Well, that's all fine and well. I just mentioned it just so you know all these things, but I certainly don't need it for that.
Okay, yeah, because I think when you're not here, how do you know where people are going? I think that sounds a good thing. I have a couple of other questions, though.
Sure.
Just curiosity, and Maria told me about the CPR masks, or the first aid kits and fire extinguishers, that we don't have those in the vehicles?
No.
At this point? Okay, but then, just curiosity, the replacement of shoulder radios, how old are the ones we have and why do they need replacement?
They break.
Yep.
Okay, and so all of them have broken, or 5 of them have broken?
There's, what do we have, 18 officers? We're calculating that based on the rate we've been replacing them. We calculated that approximately 5 would break during the next fiscal year. If it's less than that, that's great for us, but it's our best guess. We can't know what's going to break.
Okay. I know with many items you can get, top of the line, or you can get the, economy version. Are we getting a good quality?
We get the ones Miami-Dade recommends that we get.
All right, fine. Then also could you explain why you really need portable vehicle radio chargers?
Because the officers are out on 12-hour tours and the portable radio batteries go dead.
You don't have a charge of 12 hours?
No, they don't.
Okay. Okay, that's all.
Okay, anything else? Okay.
So the police officers need the shoulder radio and a car radio in addition?
I have police cars that don't have police car radios in them. I was asking for those police car radios.
Chief, if your shoulder-mounted radios, do they have the same quality of reception and range?
Absolutely
sitting
not.
inside of a car compared
Absolutely
to
not.
So that's why you need both.
Yeah, the police radio is far superior. The only problem with it is the officer can't take it with them when they get out of the car.
Right.
So the issue of the cars and the salaries, I know we're discussing that with the PBA. So is that to be discussed?
As far as what? I don't know what you mean.
We had a meeting to discuss the...
John Hearn is still in negotiations with them.
Right.
So that's still ongoing, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I have a couple more. The 2 vests were $700 each. I mean, we bought vests, I think, when you first came for everyone.
It was a grant.
It was a grant, yes, I remember that. But 2 of them are worn out, and
One is for I concluded that we may be hiring a new officer to so that one vest would be needed for that. And the second vest is in the event a vest gets damaged for whatever reason, one of the officers gets stabbed or shot, we would have to replace the vest, and there's no money for it in our current fiscal year.
And what is the burn grant, could that be used for any police equipment?
Corporal is my expert on the burn grant. I think you're correct, but I'd have to actually ask him that.
Okay.
We've been buying computer equipment with it, primarily computer.
For records or computer equipment.
And I know when we went to Tallahassee, I don't know if it was last year, probably I think the year before, I thought we had met and was able to get money for, I thought it was for vests. Didn't?
That might have been 3 years ago, maybe, because I think it was before the chief joined us.
Okay.
There was some grant available through I think it was the chiefs, FDLE, or not the day chiefs, but maybe the state chiefs.
We can look at that.
We do look at the grants, and we will ask the village manager for permission to get something if we feel that it's good for the police.
We could go back to where that grant came from, then, maybe we can apply for new funds from there.
And let's, we're paying Dave Caserta, our public relation, or our lobbyist, so let's use him as a resource.
Sure. And just as a footnote, today we met with the Florida League of Cities, our risk management coordinator, Ron Peters, and he told us about a program that the league has called LEAP, Law Enforcement
Assistance
Program. And part of that is they have a lot of grant opportunities on there. So he's given us the information. We'll be looking at that. Not just for police, but for all village safety issues. I was going to say pine cones, safety cones, or any kind of safety-related material. So that was a great thing he showed us today. We'll be taking advantage of that.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else from the commission?
Yeah, I do have something, I'm not sure where it fits, but actually one of the speakers earlier kind of alluded to some of the expenses that are going to flow from the new driveway ordinance, and not only with regard to getting our properties in compliance around the park, maybe installing pavers or whatever we need for the parking areas. I'm not sure if that will fall under Public Works or the rec center, but I also thought that maybe we could earmark some funds in the budget that will facilitate situations where the village has installed some impediment to the private homeowner coming into compliance with the ordinance. For example, where we have a sidewalk in front of someone's property, so that the village can remove that sidewalk when that owner is ready to get their permit out and come into compliance with the driveway ordinance. I was thinking we could set aside $5,000 or $10,000 and, to be used on a case-by-case basis.
I'm confused, though. I'm sorry. Can you explain it again?
Yeah. Well, there are times when the village has either paved a swale or there's an existing sidewalk in the swale. And so if the resident is going to be asked to comply with the putting in a driveway, there's a cost associated with removing that sidewalk or paving that they didn't put in.
Yeah.
I don't follow why would, if you're putting in a driveway, and let's say if you have paving on the swale, whomever put it in, I don't understand why you're removing that paving on the swale unless that person wants to have the same kind of a driveway go on out to the street. If they do, then they pay for removing that part. And we have very few places that happen to have sidewalks or pieces of sidewalks. It's the same thing. In other words, where are they parking now? Are they driving over the sidewalk that's there? If it is, then they can keep driving over and have their driveway on each side of the sidewalk. If they want to go ahead and have the same look, then they remove that piece, the contractor.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's like creating maybe a slippery slope, if the village starts to pay for that type of thing.
I thought that it was like a carrot situation where if we want people to make the improvement, then we could meet them a part of the way. I'm not saying cover the whole expense, but have them have a fund that they can draw on for those special situations that they didn't create.
I can understand, Mayor, may I?
Sure.
Okay, because I was thinking along different lines, and I know it upset people, but I'm thinking that since with changing the code, we are imposing great costs on people to change their driveways and their parking surfaces that they never intended and didn't know about. And I think if we're asking people to spend $5,000 to $10,000 that they had really not a voice in, that we should maybe save some money from the $80,000 excess in at first studying and seeing how many people would have to change their driveways, but then waiving the permitting fees and inspection fees. Because I think so many people are really put out by the amount of money that it's going to cost to bring their things up to code.
But where do you draw the line? I mean, then if somebody needs to paint their house, the village is now going to...
That's not a big change that we impose.
Well, what's a big change? It's hard to draw the line. I understand what both of you are saying.
And you have people who've already been putting in some driveways recently, a lot of them. They're paying this whole thing, so, I mean, it's not fair.
It's an improvement to their property, and it adds value.
And like was mentioned, if you waive fees, we still have to pay the inspectors. So that's going to be paid out of village funds no matter what. And I think, if you're doing construction, you do it. And the ones who didn't expect and where they were parking, I don't think it's right for people to be able to park any place they feel like on their front yard, and you have a dirt pit as a front yard, where they had no place for parking. In our proposed ordinance, if they had a place for parking, and it happens to be on the swale, but it was a place for parking, and it was less than 50% disrepair, they're allowed to park there in our proposed code. So I don't see where the hardship is, except for somebody who has nothing and they didn't care what the community looked like, and they just parked wherever they felt like it.
Commissioner Jonas, any thoughts on those two ideas? One question, if we want to talk about certain other improvements, like, for example, we talked about putting bollards on Fifth Avenue to close that median. We obviously want to finish the landscaping signage. People talked about putting speed tables on certain roadways. Is all that part of...
Public Works and Roads.
Okay.
So we can talk about it then.
Okay. All right, since it's only, what time is it? It's early.
20 minutes of 9.
Oh, I missed you.
I don't think we need to keep it all-nighter here.
Yeah.
Anyone have any last-minute comments? No?
Chuck Ross, since one of the things that was brought up earlier is something that we brought up several times over the last few years about the expense reimbursement policy that you were talking about. I think what people don't get is that you pay taxes on money and you end up spending, not just about you, Barbara, you end up you're paying taxes and you're paying payroll taxes and the village is paying payroll taxes. And what you were talking about, David, was taking the money and putting it into a pool and then using the pool of money perhaps equally among all of the commissioners for, that was the idea, wasn't it?
No, it was just each of us we know what we have, I guess after taxes, what we have to spend, and that's our pool of money that we can then use for seminars, for...
Well, that's what I'm saying. It could be a cap. You could have X amount of dollars as the cap.
Yeah, we can do it in the reverse, right? And instead of doing the...
Let's say the pool is, what's the commission salary? It's
2,000.
And then, so it's 8, it's 12, and then there's taxes on top of the 12. So let's call it 13 grand, 14 grand. So then you would take the pool of 14 grand and split it up equally. You don't have to spend it, but you would use the money to, like, for example, the miles that you were talking about that you spend in your car, it's not that complicated Barbara, stop it, please. It's not that complicated to keep track of an application where they have these apps that they keep track of your mileage when you drive around. They call it Car Buddy or something like that. And then you can get reimbursed for the amount of miles. And I think you would come out ahead. We come out behind it. I mean, because on $2,000, the average commissioner is taking home about $1,600, maybe $1,500. So I think, to me, it makes perfect sense. Got to think about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Samari, 1030 Northeast 121st Street. As everybody knows, I'm running for commission. I was actually going to save this for a campaign issue, but I think it's important right now. I think that we should, I spoke to the chief, and I think he does need 3 radios in their cars, and I think we should budget for that. But I also like an idea of, and I'm still doing research on that, Chief, in reference to body cameras on police officers. I think that we should have body cameras on the police officers to protect the police officers and also to protect the residents with all the things that are going on in reference to, allegations against police officers. I think that with the body cameras would be a good thing to protect the officers and also the residents. So that's something I think we should look into it. If we can put it into this budget, otherwise we'll save it for next commissioner, for the next commission. I really don't want to wait a whole year to get these items. I like to work on it. And we could probably get grants. I mean, there is some grants out there, and I'm still doing some research on that. But I just thought maybe if we can somehow put it into the budget now.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Congratulations on your decision.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. I agree with Barbara Watts and Bob Anderson about the reimbursement for the commission positions. $2,000 isn't a lot of money. To start drawing down is incredibly burdensome, and $2,000 is a lot of money for some people who may not even be working. They may be a mother that's at home. Maybe she wants to use the money, or he wants to use the money for a babysitter, or like Barbara said, to have a lawn service do something so that you can spend the time as a commissioner. And it's been like this for a long time. In a few months, there may be new commissioners. I would just leave it the way it is and then let the new commission talk about it. But, it sounds very easy for an accountant to say, just keep track of everything, but it's a royal pain in the neck. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
When I go to the doctors, I still have 2 years having time to do that counting up. It's crazy.
So, not to beat the same drum, but just wondering, since you didn't discuss anything about the road drainage issues and such, that's going to be next time?
Correct, yep.
Okay, probably won't be here, but anyway, okay, I guess I'll hear about that another time.
We'll be sure to tape it so you can...
Is there, can I ask Maria, you said there was some figure that you had written in on the state budget. Is that not available at this point in terms of, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is there or is there not a figure to maintain the drains and we do those things? And
That is all being checked on, and where the money, if the report shows whatever to fix that particular area, because there's a couple of different ways to do it, until we see the report, what is the best way of doing it. But there is monies available that's part of the CITT fund. So there is dollars.
Mhm.
We just need to wait till we get the report to find out which way is recommended.
right.
As
But the
being
report
the
will
right
be
way.
here after the budget's done.
And, well, CITT fund is there. That's money that could be drawn on. Whatever happens, it's for roads. Not the road itself, but, for cars driving around there not to impede, drivability. So whatever
Understood.
it takes-
I'm just saying, if you have $100,000 there and you budget 10 to fix the road and they tell you it's going to cost 50,
No, we're
and you're
not.
40 short.
We can't budget for repairs and making because where that road is, we're not budgeting anything because we don't know what it's going to cost until we get the report. When that report shows, then we can go ahead and advertise and find out what it's going to cost. We have the money to do it. The monies that we have from the roads, from the state, is a different money. Completely a different, something completely different.
Okay.
I think what Commissioner Anderson's saying is that when we settle the budget, CITT spending book doesn't close at that moment. Come January, if we decide to use that CITT money for an improvement, we're not precluded from using it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That makes sense. Thank you both.
All right. Madam Manager, can you just quickly update before we end the meeting on the village manager contract negotiations? Is John going to be at the next meeting to update us?
Yes, next Wednesday, we have both a special commission meeting where the updated contract will come before you along with the resolution, and that's where we can finalize it at that time. The amended contract based on our August 2nd meeting will come to you tomorrow, as well as to the candidate.
Okay, so it hasn't been transmitted to her yet?
No, tomorrow.
Okay.
John's kind of still been working on it.
Okay. Okay. All right, announcements?
Basically, just to say that our next budget workshop is next Wednesday. It'll be at 7:30, immediately following the special commission meeting, which is at 6:30 PM.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, thank you, everyone.